And now, right to your host of this House of Musicians, Barry Smith.
Hello and welcome, fine listeners, to this House of Musicians radio show. We hope you enjoy the next hour with us as we do our small part to help promote musicians, bands, and venues. Gary LaBar, how are you?
I'm fine. You know, you're doing much better than me. You're on vacation.
On vacation, made it to Surrey, was in Kelowna yesterday for 4 days. Now we're here in Surrey at a friend's house. On the road traveling, doing the show. Absolutely digging it, and it seems to be working out good. And I'm very excited about our guest this evening.
Absolutely.
Now, folks, I have an amazing singer-songwriter, totally her own original style. I can't even put it in a class of genre. I've been listening to her music over the last little while, and you're going to hear two of her songs tonight. We have Lynne Hanson on the show this evening. Lynne, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing very well, Barry. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, you're welcome, dear. It's our honor to have you. I know how much you've toured around the world and how much you've done as a traveling musician. But first, I want to start, Lynne, to ask you how you were influenced by music when you were younger. Like, were your parents musicians? Did your older brother have a vinyl album? And maybe what you were listening to at that time?
I'm actually the youngest of 8 kids. And so
Wow.
I have siblings that are a lot older than me. And one of my sisters used to babysit me by basically sitting me in front of her record player and playing all of her records on a record player. And that's probably why I'm a songwriter today, is because I got exposed to all these songwriters at a pretty young age. And then, yes, actually, one of my brothers, he had an acoustic guitar that he never played, but he was cool because he had it. So I wanted to learn how to play because he played acoustic guitar, and I started playing in my teens, I guess, and then and now here we are.
Yeah, here you are. And so how old do you think you were when you figured out, boy, I can sing and play a guitar, like in your teens?
I always loved writing. But I mean, I think I knew that I wanted to be a songwriter. I knew I wanted to be a writer my entire life. But the songwriting part of it just sort of came later on. I was in a relationship with a jazz guitar player, and so I've always been around music. And then I started playing in his band, and then we broke up. So I started writing sad songs, and then I got my own career going. And it was never something I sort of actively sought out. It just kind of happened, which is probably what happens to a lot of people in terms of the job that they do.
Yeah, no doubt. And so do you remember your first gig maybe at a pub or a family reunion or something where there was like 20 people or maybe more and you got up and played and sang? And do you remember that first one? Do you remember the first song?
I don't remember the first song, but I sort of cut my teeth touring with that other songwriter for about 5 years. So when I got onto the stage to play my own stuff, I played a little folk club here in Ottawa, and I wasn't ever nervous because I'd already been on the stage a bunch. But it just always felt like a natural place for me. So I have no idea what the first song was, but I do remember where it was, and it was at that little folk club.
That's pretty cool. And you would have been, what, 14, 15, maybe older?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, no?
I was a little bit older than that.
Okay.
Because I remember I was already touring with someone for 5 years.
Oh, shoot. Okay, yeah. I must have skipped over that part. I'm trying to read some stuff here as well.
Yeah, no problem. But, no. Even it just made me laugh because I'm literally, in my head, I'm picturing myself as 9 years old, like driving and stuff all across, all the way out west and back.
Yeah, well, yeah, there you go. So now, what music did you grow up on listening to? Was it country or rock or?
You know what? Again, like having that many siblings with a huge age difference, there was a lot of different kind of music in my house. I listened to probably Springsteen was the big one that I kind of gravitated to, and that's why I kind of I like the story songs. I like the lyrics that say something, like that have some meaning to them, but also like a little bit edgy sometimes and with a good groove,
Yeah, and like I said earlier, for me, and I've been around music all my life, is it's hard to put you in a genre. I've seen some articles that said blues. I don't necessarily agree with that. I mean, there are some songs that you play that are bluesy. What genre, if any at all, would you think that you are?
I tend to get lumped into the Americana category. I always say that I'm too tough for folk and too blues influenced for country, and it kind of it gets captured in that whole Americana genre. It's a real, the real focus is on the lyrics and the groove and the whether it leans country, leans blues, or leans to whatever it is, doesn't seem to bother an audience that's familiar with that kind of stuff.
Right, and you definitely have an edgy, geez, what's the word I could even think of to use? Like an edgy, oh, I don't know, man. Sometimes I can't explain myself to what I hear, but it's maybe not dark, but in that array of darkness, kind of. If that makes any sense.
Oh, I think that's accurate. One of the ways I describe it is porch music with a little red dirt.
Little Red Dirt. That's right. That's awesome. Now, you released an award-winning album in 2006 called Things I Miss. So did you just say, okay, I'm going to do an album now, my first album, I'm going to sit down, write a bunch of songs, pick songs, and go do the album? Is that how that happened?
Pretty much. That's pretty much what happened.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, I was in my kitchen and I had just written my first song, and there was another guitar player that was in my house, and he said to me, "Oh, that's a really good song." And so he co-wrote a bunch of songs with me as well, and just sort of coached me along in terms of the songwriting part of things. And and just thought, well, hey man, I might as well record them. And then again, here we are, 8 records later.
8 records later, and that's just fabulous. So you went into this, I guess you just called a studio or knew somebody, I guess it would all be through friends and musicians, and got this first album done. And what did it feel like for the first time? I mean, I know, but I want the listener to know what it felt like when that album's done and you have it in your hand at home, like however long later. How long did it take you to make that album?
3-4 months. I think it was 3-4 months.
Cool.
Yeah. But I think the coolest thing was I remember sitting in my driveway and I had the radio on and I heard one of my songs come on the radio, and I didn't know that it was going to go on the radio, and I heard it for the first time on the radio. And I think that was like, if you're going to try to pick, 5 goosebump moments in your entire career, that would have been a goosebump moment.
Oh, for sure. That's incredible. I mean, I can't imagine how you would have felt to be driving along and then hear your own song on the radio. And then, and did they play any others off that album as well?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. I wish I could remember what that first track was, but I don't remember.
Okay. I could do it quickly.
Yeah.
But I do have 11. So, and then you had more albums to follow, of course, 11 months in 2008.
Yeah.
And the sun goes, so you have 8 albums, and you sent me an album to play 2 songs off of, which are absolutely amazing songs. So talk to me about touring. How did touring start for you? Because I know you've been to Europe and whatnot. Does an agent or a manager help you do that, or how did you get to start touring and doing festivals and whatnot?
Yeah, I have an agent in Europe, and I've gone through a few. I've got an agent in the UK, also gone through a few there. And I have an agent in the United States. Oddly enough, I do not have an agent in Canada. And in terms of me getting over to Europe, it was kind of odd. There was a guy who owned like a record store or a CD store or whatever it would have been. And he got hold of Things I Miss in 2006, and he kept emailing me for me to send him more and more CDs. And he personally sold like something like 500 CDs out of his store. Wow. Jeez. So he hooked me up with an agent in Holland, and then she booked a tour for me. I think my first tour in Holland was it was either 2007 or 2008. I can't remember. And then from there, I got a UK agent because, oddly enough, they all know each other. And so one It's like once you get one thing, you get a whole bunch of other things. And it's very similar.
Got you.
You know, you play a festival, you get more festivals. You play a venue, you get more venues because it's a very small community.
Yeah, no doubt. And so now you're over here, you're packing your stuff here going, I'm going to Holland to tour. And you go over to Holland and what's it like over there touring? What was that like?
Well, the first time is always super exciting because it's so different because English is a second language. And although they do speak, they're very fluent in English in Holland, but it was very different. I mean, everything looked different. Like, it's not like our streets, you know, it's not like going to America. It was really was like going to another country, and everything was so different. And it was very exciting. I remember I picked up a couple of musicians over there and played with them as a trio. And
cool.
Yeah, it was just very exciting because it's for the first time, right? I think the problem with a lot of touring musicians is once you've done it a bunch of times, you know, it's like, I know it's going to be a long drive, or I'm not going to get enough time to eat or whatever. And you sort of start to become like Krusty the Clown or something.
Well, yeah. The charisma kind of goes away when you play, you know, Holland 15 times, right?
Yeah, but I'll tell you something. At the end of the day, because of this pandemic, I will never complain about being on the road again.
You know what? I had Basil Donovan on the show, or I interviewed him live, I think maybe a month ago from Blue Rodeo, and he said to me, which stuck to me, we just went and did our first show. I think it was a drive-in one Blue Rodeo did, and he said to me, we were actually on stage after the set was over saying, I love you, man. I love you, man, because we all took it. We all played and played like, I did the same thing around town in Ontario and whatnot. And you just take it for granted when you go out and play your gig and you're done. Of course, we all love doing it, but it really hit home when COVID started because, like I say, Basil was like, they were telling each other, Jim Cuddy and those boys, that they just love each other. And that's just so remarkable. It brought everybody back so far down to earth in a way that, you know, so yeah. And then, so now you were touring in Europe. Tell me about this. You were in Europe when COVID kind of hit. This has got to be just a nightmare.
Oh, I was in the hot spot. I was in Germany and Holland so I don't know, like, if people remember this part, but you know, the big outbreak, it started in Italy, and then people that were on holidays across Europe brought it back to their countries. And so it kind of made its way from Italy into Austria and then into Germany and Holland. And so I was in these areas that on the map, you know, they were marked as red. So there's these big, huge red because it was like this massive hotspots of COVID. But at that time, nobody really knew. It was like it's hard to think back, but it was like people were saying things, it's just a flu, it's not a big deal, it's, you know, it's not dangerous. And so nobody was really taking all that seriously. And I remember playing a show and then hearing that the NBA was thinking about playing their games with no fans. And that's when it became very real for us. And then so we watched it as the big shows shut down. And then it was the 1,000, then it was 500 limit, then it was 100 limit. And at this point, I'm like, you know, it took me 2 days to get our flights changed. And we literally got on like the last normal plane. The pilot said over the speaker, well, ladies and gentlemen, it's a good day to be going back to Canada because as of tomorrow, there won't be any regular flights. And I remember my heart kind of jumping, and we got to Toronto, and you know, we all got piled on. This is funny. It's funny now, but I mean, at the time, God, we were idiots. We're like we're getting piled off this plane into buses, like herded like sheep. And there's hundreds of us literally in these big extended buses where we're all shoulder to shoulder, no mask. Everybody's talking. Everybody's like freaking out. And there's like 100 of us in this. And then we get into the customs and there's thousands and thousands of people. And I remember this one guy walking like right next to me. He was being escorted, and he was the only guy who had a mask on because he had a special paper that was blue, which I can only guess to this day said he had COVID.
Oh, geez.
Oh yeah, it was like, when I think back, I was like, it was insane.
But that was before, I'm sure that was before they started saying wear masks, before they figured out, you know what, maybe people should wear masks if there's a virus, because that took a little while to happen. So that must have been before that.
Oh yeah, because that didn't happen until May, and this was the middle of March. This was before we hadn't shut down yet. Like when I landed, I was supposed to quarantine, but we hadn't shut anything down yet. You could still go to the store. You did not wear. No one was wearing masks. Like this, it would be a couple months before we really realized what was going on. And so it's kind of surreal to look back and think back to. It's like I was in the middle of that right as it went from like the before times to the pause. I was right there.
Absolutely, like you're and so how quickly from Europe was it after a show and they said we got to go now, or was it in the morning, the show, the morning after a show, we got to get up and go? Like how soon after one of your gigs in Europe did you get on a plane and come home? Like was it immediately?
So our last show was on a Thursday night, and on Friday morning, I called my agent and said, "Listen, cancel the rest of the shows. We're going home." And somebody still wanted to, like one of the band members, still wanted to play on of course, on one of the shows. And I'm like, "We're getting home." So I then proceeded. We went to 2 airports because I couldn't get through on the phone, couldn't get through on a computer. Couldn't get anybody, like to talk to anybody from Air Canada. And then finally, like the night of the Friday night, I finally somehow got through on a computer to change our flights. And then we managed to get on that flight on Sunday. And that was like the last flight.
Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Just so, and weren't we all thinking, at least I was, like it would seem to be so extreme on the news and stuff that I expected to be seeing people dying in the streets and stuff as you're walking down this. That's how bad I thought it was. But I mean, of course, it's still bad. Don't get me wrong. But definitely you got home safe, and that's the main thing, I suppose. Why don't we do this, Lynn? Why don't we play one of your songs that we're going to play tonight? This is a title track off of your latest album, I believe, 2019.
2020, yeah.
Sorry, 2020. So this is a title track. I absolutely dig this tune. It's called Just Words. And then I want to come back, talk about the song a little, and talk about the album. Folks, you're listening to This House of Musicians radio show. And I have Lynne Hanson on the show this evening. And we're going to play her song, title track, Just Words, right here on This House of Musicians radio show on Reality Radio 101.
Daddy's little girl says she's his whole world. Ain't never raised a hand, 'cause he ain't that kind of man. Never pays any mind. The things he says that are so unkind. Careless words that cut so deep and teach her what she's supposed to be. Nobody's gonna save you. Nobody's gonna make a way for you. Nobody thinks it matters what they say. Just words anyway. Just words anyway. Young boys can be so sweet, so cruel, so indiscreet. Young girls spreading lies in the dark. Nasty bite to go with that bark. Keep your head down, keep your head down, keep your head down. Don't make a sound, make a sound, don't make a sound. Get lost, stay safe in the crowd, 'cause whispered words can be out damn loud. Nobody's gonna save you. Nobody's gonna make a way for you. Nobody thinks it matters what they say. It's just words anyway. Just words anyway. Sticks and stones can break your bones, but words they shake and shape you. Sticks and stones can break your bones, but words they mold and make you. Nobody's gonna save you. Nobody's gonna make a way for you. Nobody thinks it matters what they say. It's just words anyway. Just words anyway. Just words anyway. Just words anyway.
Hey, welcome back, folks. We have Lynne Hanson on the show this evening. Excuse me, and we just heard Just Words, her track title from her album called Just Words. Love the message, Lynne. So watch the video, love the message. Does it pertain to something that's happened to you? Explain to me why this song came about.
Well, I think just about everybody has at least been picked on at least once in their life. And I think it was just a general kind of observation when I talk to a lot of different people, especially, teenagers who get picked on. And, I just kind of felt that people didn't realize how harmful their words could be. And I just remember someone sort of saying something to me, especially as an entertainer, a lot of the times they'll say like, you just have to get a thicker skin, like as if it's okay to say these things. And so I thought, you know what, man, these aren't just words. And I wrote that down and I ended up putting it in a song.
Yeah, fabulous message. When you wrote that song, I'm curious to know, because that seems like I write a lot of my songs on an acoustic guitar, and it seems like that song, if you started writing on acoustic, would have turned into something totally different to become what it has. If you're sitting at home trying to write it, like I say, on an acoustic, and then you have all this other stuff. Like, did you have this plan for it to sound like that when the song was done?
Oh, absolutely.
Really?
I've made a bunch of records now, and so and I'm actually co-producing this latest one of mine, and I co-produced the one for the Lynnes. And I think when you've got enough experience, especially in the studio, when I'm writing a song now, like I hear it as it's going to be produced. So I think that if I had tried to write that song at the beginning, it would have been difficult to do it without hearing where it was going to end up. But because it did start on an acoustic guitar, because there's an acoustic guitar part in that. But I did know, like, I wanted it to be big and mean and
raunchy,
gnarly.
Yep.
Yeah, I wanted it to sound exactly as it sounds.
Yeah, and it does. It's amazing.
Thank you.
Is that how you usually write songs? Is with an acoustic? I know for me, I'll pick up my acoustic and play a bunch of riffs, record them on my phone. I think I have 207 now, and maybe over the last few years, and maybe come back once in a while and listen to one or two and like it and turn that into a song. What's your creative writing process?
Well, I do a lot of co-writing. So I have, like you, probably have a bazillion things on my phone. And I have like little snippets of things that I'll put in my laptop, in like snippets of ideas or song titles or whatever the case might be. But I also do a lot of co-writing. And it seems like in the last 6 or 7 months, I've been doing a lot of what's called top lining, which is when you get tracks from somebody and then you develop a vocal melody on top of it and then you write the lyrics to it. And so that is a very different and new process for me, and I'm loving every minute of it. It's just the best
fabulous
thing ever. I actually wrote a progressive rock tune with a guy from Sweden.
Wow.
Yeah, seriously. And I'm not talking like a little progressive. I'm talking like
really
progressive, like something you'd hear Rush do.
That's killer, and that's what the new technology has given us.
It really has, and I got set up at home, like, I've got like, it's just a little 2-track thing that I can record at home. And I spent about 6 months learning how to use, a digital audio workstation. I use Logic because it's like recording for dummies, like for musicians who don't actually want to know what they're doing. And yeah, it's been kind of a eye opener as to how different writing becomes when you change up your tools.
Yeah, I guess there's so many ways you can kind of do it. And for me, it's always been sit down with an acoustic. And so many times, like you've done a lot more albums than I have, but so many times for me, I'll write a song on an acoustic, go in the studio, and the song doesn't come out exactly what I had in mind, but I still like it. It still turns out good, but there's always stuff to add to it that you can't add at home on an acoustic kind of thing.
It's very true. And I think one of the things that's been kind of interesting is songs that normally got cut on the studio floor. Well, if I go to do a demo of them and it doesn't work, it's like it gets killed and maybe never gets played live because, I'm not touring. So I play very few shows, few outdoor shows, few indoor shows. So yeah, it's a different process now. But like you, I do tend to, like when I'm by myself, I will tend to pick up an acoustic guitar. Although lately I've been playing electric.
Good.
And writing on electric a lot more.
I find writing with electric, maybe the songs are a little heavier, maybe, or maybe, I don't know. Yeah, that's what I find. How about you? Definitely
different, like because you get that sustain, on an electric guitar, and all the, like, I love pedals. You're not going to believe this. I should just Strymon should start to endorse me because I've been raving about their little Iridium pedal, which has actually replaced my amp. It's an amp sim, and I always laughed at these things. I'm like, no way, man, I'm never going to go play on stage without an amp. And now I'm like, man, I don't have to carry an amp. I love this thing. It sounds great. I control the sound. It sounds the same every night. But, amp builders, please don't send me hate mail.
Oh, I know. I can imagine. No, you're absolutely right. I had Nikki Stringfield from Iron Maidens on the show, and she said the same thing. There were days we used to lug our amps around. There was always problems with the amps or getting it to sound the way, every time we went to set up, it was different. But that's what she does, exactly what you're doing now. Yeah. So I think a lot of musicians are steering away from bringing big amplifiers on stage, and the ones that are there that are on stage are probably hollow in the back.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, the technology has gotten to the point where, like the amp sim that I'm using, like people that are, real amp snobs are saying this is the first time there's been like a pedal like this that's got the Vox amp right, and I play a Gretsch, so being able to, play a Vox in a pedal and not have to carry around like one of those Vox 30s is like definitely a bonus.
Oh, big time. And what do you like about the Gretsch? I'm sure you've played Les Pauls, which are darn heavy as hell. I'm sure you played Fender Telecasters and Stratocasters. I'm sure you've tried them all. What do you like about the Gretsch?
I like its presence. There's something about, it's a partial hollow body. It has a presence, especially in the low end, that I just really gravitate to. I like the fact that I could play just a few notes down low and it sounds mean and deep and dirty and dark and it's tough, and I love trem as well. So it's just a really nice pairing. Plus, I honestly, they're just such a cool looking guitar.
They are. And you have like a burgundy one, right?
Yeah, I got the Tennessee Rose.
Cool. I have a lot of guitars. I'm kind of a collector. I don't have a Gretsch, but I'm still one of these days when my wife lets me have one because I know how expensive they are. I'll probably get one. That's definitely something I'm looking forward to. Let's talk about. I want to ask you about. I know we were all down at home for 2 years, I would say, but now things are kind of opening up. Talk about the venues that you do, because I know they're not small pubs. Talk about the venues and what you've been up to since everything's kind of opened up a bit as far as playing goes.
Well, I've been doing mostly outdoor shows, just because we still have very limited, we're allowed very limited attendance indoors, and people are still very hesitant to want to be indoors. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in the fall. I'm supposed to have one tour in September to go up to Northern Ontario, but I haven't been trying to book things that are very far away. Right. That really starts for me in March. So in March, I'm supposed to go down to the United States on a tour. And then in April, I'm supposed to go to UK, and next May to Europe. We're booking them. I have no idea if I'm going to have to reschedule these things for the third time. I lost 100 album release shows in 2020. 100.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's, I thought 2021 was going to be, better. And then it was like, oh my gosh, this is worse. And so now I'm keeping my expectations really low. So if I get to play, these shows up in Northern Ontario, I'll be the happiest. I'll be the happiest person around. And if it doesn't happen, you just kind of accept it. And just for me, I'm trying to keep my feet moving creatively. So, I'm in the process of, we're just starting to record a new record. I have 2 singles coming out this fall. I've gotten into making videos and stuff. And so it's a ton of creative things. And I finally got back to writing in January. So I'm back writing, which makes me happy. And it's difficult because it's like you're not getting that payday today. So I'm running a crowdfunding thing right now. And I'm very fortunate that I've had, a fair amount of support for it, which means I'll be able to make this record. So it's a different way of doing business. I used to make my money by going out and selling the CD or the vinyl face to face. And right now it's on spec. That's how I like to think of it. It's on spec. People are supporting me ahead of time. And then, so it's kind of you've turned that business model upside down.
Yeah, it's amazing, and it goes right back to that new technology stuff. It's amazing. Yeah. I see lots of musicians online with a tip page and whatever it is, or they play a little show and people send them PayPal stuff. So that's absolutely amazing. Now let's go back to, you said that you canceled 100 album release parties, but you must have not been playing those songs from that album much since COVID shut down. Would it be fair to say that you could probably still have 100 more release parties for that album, or are you just past that now?
Well, I mean, I hate to say that, my poor little kid never got out the door, I feel really bad for this creation of mine, because I actually am still very proud of that record. But usually by now I'd be like, I'm so over that record, because I only like my new songs. But I actually still like that record. And good. I think that, moving forward, and right now, what I'm doing right now live is, I play 2 45-minute sets. So I'm pretty much playing just words. I'll play a couple of old favorites, that the crowd likes, like River Sand and a few others that people really like. And then I've been filling up the rest of the set list with all these new songs. So I think probably, by the time these 2 records are out at the same time, it'll be all of just words, all of whatever I'm going to call this new record, and then maybe a couple of old songs. So I think they'll probably get we'll call it a co-bill, or just words will open for the next record.
Yeah, no kidding. Why not? Because it's kind of hard to, by the time this is all done, you'll have a new album out. It's kind of hard to have a release party for 2 CDs. Hey, I don't know, maybe not.
Well, you never know, eh? You can make up whatever rules.
On Friday, you could have a release party for just words, and on Saturday, you could have a release party for the new album. I mean, I don't see why not.
I think you can do whatever you want now. I think that's the new rule.
Absolutely, the new rule. Do whatever you like. Let me ask you this question: highlight of your career?
That's such a tough thing because it really, I don't know what highlight. That's a really hard question. I think every time I put out a new record, I think that's the highlight because I feel like as an artist, I have gotten better over the years. Like my songwriting has improved and I've just become a better artist. And so the highlight, and I know it's such a strange thing to say, but really the highlight is the next big thing that's going to happen. You know, it's like when this record,
Sorry, go ahead.
No, just like when I put out Hold My Breath is going to come out on September 10th. It's going to be that. But then Shadowland will come out on October 29th. And it's going to be listen to my new sound. And I'll be so excited about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about some touring that you've done and maybe who you've toured with.
Oh, I've toured in all over Europe and I've toured in the States and Canada. A couple of highlights. I got to open for Albert Lee over in England and here in Canada. Very nice human. Super amazing guitar player, but he's even a nicer human. That was a lot of fun because he's, been this guy that's played with these incredible songwriters. So what a thing to be able to talk to him and have him be so nice to me. And I've opened for people. I've been on a support tour for Gretchen Peters and Steve Forbert and Ruthie Foster, all kinds of people.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. And it's always humbling. And I love to hear stories, and it's humbling to hear of musicians who treat other musicians and other people so down to earth, because it's a really crazy business. And there's a lot of people in the business that aren't as nice as some. So I always love hearing stories about people that are humble, very, humbled by their success.
Mm-hmm.
If you're driving in your car, let's say, and you're going to get some milk and bread today, who would you have on? What CD would you put in? Who are you listening to these days?
When I'm making a record, I don't listen to anybody. I'll have reference tracks, in terms of producing and stuff. And so I guess that's not entirely not true because I've been listening to The Killers. They've got a new record out.
Cool.
Just listening to some of their production ideas and things like that. But yeah, and I listened to, for my previous record, I listened to Nicole Case. She had a record out and I listened to her for a bit just because it's odd because I obviously don't sound like either of those bands. But I love to listen to someone who isn't like me, to get ideas in terms of, being able to bring some new colors into my palette. So that's typically what I do is I'll listen to somebody that I don't actually know that well.
Yeah, that's great. And I'm going to shoot somebody at you that I want you to listen to who's a little bit on the dark side. She's in South Africa. You might have already heard of her. Her name is Fiona Hare, Hare. So with the other names you just mentioned, I think she'd fit right in. But check out Fiona Hare. She's absolutely amazing. I think you're going to dig her stuff. I
totally will. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. So why don't we do this, Lynn? Why don't we play the next song we're going to play, which is also off the Just Words album called Lollipops and Roses, and then we'll come back and talk about it.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Folks, I have Lynne Hanson on this House of Musicians radio show this evening. We're going to listen to her song, Lollipops and Roses. It sounds so... Lynn, it sounds so like Lollipops and Roses, like a bubble gum, but then when you listen to it, it's so heavy and dark.
That was intentional.
Yeah, no kidding. I love it. Folks, again, Lollipops and Roses, Lynne Hanson on this evening's program, right here, this House of Musicians radio show on Reality Radio 101.
Hot night in Brooklyn, ain't seen the light for days. Wind gave up on blowing, this city's knee deep in gray. I got my windows swung wide open, can hear them shouting across the way. Can't make the words she's crying out, but I sure can feel her hate. When I die, won't you bury me with lollipops and roses next to me? 'Cause I've been riding this little train so long, I'm in need of something sweet. When I die, let lollipops and roses cover me. I wear thrift shop shoes, cheap lipstick, read Hollywood memoirs. I like to wrap myself in old cliches, watch the weeds grow in my yard. Only friends I got are at the laundromat with me Tuesdays on Union Street. Play cards, drink whiskey to the smell of soap, scrub away at those memories. When I die, won't you bury me with lollipops and roses next to me? 'Cause I've been riding this little train so long, I'm in need of something sweet. When I die, let lollipops and roses cover me. Solo torts on tango, days across the wire. My feet all tangled up in yesterday. I'm a butterfly at midnight in a labyrinth of desire. Never did learn to just walk away. When I die, won't you bury me with lollipops and roses next to me? 'Cause I've been riding this little train so long, I'm in need of something sweet. When I die, let lollipops and roses cover me. Yeah, let lollipops and roses cover me. Let lollipops and roses.
Hey, welcome back, folks. We have Lynne Hanson on tonight's program. We just heard Lollipops and Roses, her song off of her Just Words album. I want to talk about that song for a bit, Lynne, and how it came to be.
I was in Brooklyn, New York, and it was hotter than hell. And the apartment buildings, they don't have air conditioning in the whole unit, just in the bedroom, so you don't like melt at night. And there was this couple having the monster of all arguments, but I couldn't hear what they were saying because the screaming was echoing off all the concrete, because all the windows were open. And so it just kind of stuck in my mind, and I started thinking about like a bitter life and how you just, you know, at the end, you just hope that there's something sweet at the end of it. And that's how that song was born.
That's how it gets Cover Me with Lollipops and Roses.
Yeah.
That's too cool. Again, let's tell everybody, I got a few more questions for you. Let's tell everybody what you're working on again now. I know you have a single coming out in September, I believe, and October. Let's just tell the folks about that and where they can find you online.
Yeah, so I have a brand new single coming out on September the 10th called Hold My Breath. And then I have a second one coming out at the end of October called Shadowland. And the best thing for people to do if they want to find out more about me or find out about all of this new music is to visit lynnehanson.com.
Perfect. There you go. I want to ask you about the players on your songs. They're absolutely amazing players. Are they your touring band or are they studio musicians?
Well, the fellow that I'm co-producing my record with right now, he is part of my touring band, and that's a fellow by the name of Blair Michael Hogan, great guitar player. And the people on the record, just words. I wish they were in my touring band. They're talented bunch of people, but session musicians, all of them. Probably my all-time favorite guitar player in the entire world, Kevin Bright. He played on this record, and that's all the really cool, nifty, weird sounds. That's Kevin. Yeah, cool. The little flat notes when he's letting a lead note sustain. I hear it go just a little bit flat, but that makes it dark. So I kind of like that, or sharp in some cases. Yeah, I've
heard that in there.
Great player.
For sure.
Player.
Let me ask you this: favorite place you've ever played?
Austin on my birthday.
Wow. And
Austin,
why is
Texas. Because it was Austin and it was my birthday. And it was a rib house and they fed me afterwards and it was amazing. It was during South by Southwest. Right. So yes, South by. And it was just incredible because it's such a huge party. It's like so many people, so much music, and it was just a joy to be a part of it and to be down there because it was warm and it's Austin, and I got a fantastic deal on a pair of cowboy boots. Which normally they rip people off because you're there during South by and there's thousands of musicians, but the guy gave me a great deal when I walked in and bought these boots. So
I wonder if he knew who you were.
Oh, I doubt it. There was a lot of people that were quite famous walking around that you could bump into. So I think it probably because I was polite.
Oh, there you go. And was it a festival then you were playing at?
Well, it's South by Southwest, which is a massive sort of conference that takes over the entire city for about a week. So there's like live music. I mean, there's always live music at so many different venues in Austin and on any given night, but during that week, when it's happening, it's just insane. Like you'll have big, huge bands playing there, and then you'll have like just people playing like in the corner. It's quite an experience to go down and see that.
I bet it is. And you say you're probably working on an album now, or is the album? Do you have all the 10 songs? I know you have 2 being released soon. Do you have all the 10 songs ready yet now, or no?
We're just starting to record them, so they're written.
Good,
but we're just recording now.
And where do you record them, in Ottawa?
Yeah, we're doing this ourselves. So I am outsourcing. Like I'm getting parts brought in, like different session players playing them and sending them to me. But we're recording probably, I'm going to say 70% of it ourselves. And then I have the best mix and mastering engineer that I've ever run into. He's been nominated for Grammy and stuff. So he's the guy that will glue it all together for me and make it sound good.
And I'll tell you, I don't know if he's the guy from the last album and whatnot, but you do have an amazing sound. It's very professionally produced and great musicians on it. Favorite part of of having artists on the show, my favorite question. Tell me, it puts you on the spot a little bit, but tell me a crazy story that's happened to you either in the UK or in Canada or in the States. Something crazy on stage, on a tour bus, on a plane, just something crazy that's happened music related to you while you were touring.
And that whole COVID thing doesn't count?
Well, hey, you know what? That's a darn big one, Lynne.
That was a pretty good story. Okay.
That was a darn...
I have a funny story. So on September 1st, I will celebrate 10 years of sobriety, but I used to drink and I was fun. I was a very, very fun drunk. And so I once was supposed to be, I had a 7 a.m. lobby call and it was to be on the BBC radio. And I played a show in a hotel, like a big ballroom. And then afterwards, they talked me into going to the pub to have a drink with them and bring my guitar and play. And I did not realize that when they lock the door and they keep serving people, they'll do it till like through the whole night. So at 5:30 in the morning, I saw the sun coming up, and I'm like, "What time is it?" And I was drunker than you could possibly be. And I'm like, "Oh my God, I have to go to bed. I have to get up for like a 7 o'clock lobby call." So I somehow managed to get myself back to my hotel room. I lost this key that was literally 6 inches big. It was a big, ancient. I don't know how I lost it. I got into my room and I lost it. I couldn't find it. Anyways, at 8 o'clock in the morning, they finally managed to break through my door. I'm fully clothed. They're throwing all my clothes into my suitcase. They pour me into the car. I thought I gave a great interview. And then,
Right.
and then after, the person I was touring with, and I was still drunk, and she's just like, "That was so unprofessional. I could smell you across the room." And I said, "Yeah, but I rocked that interview." And I thought she was
Right.
going to leave me like at the side of the road. So that's probably the crazy. Well, it's one of the crazy stories of me being a bad influence or badly behaved on the road.
Yeah, well, we all like to party, especially when you're on the road and you're bored to hell. The only fun time is I shouldn't say the only fun time, but the only the highlight is when you're on stage playing, and the rest of the time is waiting.
It really is, and it's grueling, and so you let off his steam. But I let off steam in different ways these days.
Well, good for you. And there's a segment of the show, Lynn, I like to do called, "Well, Gary LeBar, what do you think?"
What do I think? Okay. Wow. I think I'm trying to find, put what I think for Lynn, what her type of genre is and everything like you were talking about. There isn't one, but her tone quality and her voice range and stuff reminds me of a little bit of like Melissa Etheridge, a little bit, because it's more deeper type of a female voice, which I love. I think the tone quality is fantastic with that. But I'll tell you one thing I noticed is Lollipops and Roses. That would be interested to be a song somewhere in Hollywood for a movie soundtrack.
Like Pulp Fiction.
Oh, I'd be
That's what I was thinking when I was listening to it.
Yeah, I would definitely be shopping that to Hollywood. There's a definite thing there that I'm sure would garner some interest with that particular song. But I wish Lynn the best, because with COVID, lightening up a little bit, we're still not back where we were in the norm, but, I'm hoping that she can get those gigs and make some money and get out there. So I'm wishing you the best, Lynn.
Thank you so much, Gary. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
And Lynn, again, I just want to say it's our honor to have you on the show. Love your music, and look forward to also seeing you. My wife and I do a lot of we go and see a lot of shows, my wife and I. So if you get up to Northern Ontario or somewhere like that around Ontario, geez, even if you do something in Ottawa when everything's back open, we'd love to come see you. So I will definitely stay in touch with you and keep following your progress. But I really appreciate you doing our show, Lynn. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Barry. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. And to the listeners, I say, always dance and sing, and let the music bring your soul to the surface for all the world to see. Until next time, have a shuffle your feet kind of week, and good night. You've been listening to this House of Musicians radio show on Reality Radio 101.